All right, so let's dive into Tove Jansson's Trollvinter. This one's always felt a little different to me. It's got this kind of somber beauty to it, especially with that story of the squirrel. I'm curious to see what you've dug up about it.
Yeah, Trollvinter is definitely a departure from those lighthearted, summery Moomin stories we're used to. It's winter, it's harsh, and it really throws Moomintroll for a loop since it's his first time experiencing it.
Yeah, we usually see him all cozy, hibernating with his family.
Yeah.
But here, he's all alone wandering through this frozen world. It's almost like he's been thrust into a completely different reality.
Exactly. And I think that feeling of being alone in a changed world is at the heart of the story. This book was actually written right between Dangerous Midsummer and when the Moomins really hit peak fame. So you have to wonder if Jansson was channeling some of her own anxieties into Trollvinter.
Oh, wow, I never thought about that. You mean like the overwhelming changes she was dealing with?
Exactly. She was suddenly thrust into the spotlight, dealing with copyright issues, merchandise, global attention. It was a whirlwind.
I can only imagine. It must have felt like her whole world had shifted, kind of like how Moomintroll is experiencing this sudden shift into winter.
That's the thing. It wasn't just a change of seasons for her. It was a complete shift in her reality. And this is where the squirrel story becomes really potent. It's a stark reminder that change can be brutal, even deadly sometimes.
Oh, yeah, the squirrel. I always felt so sad for that little guy, just minding his own business, completely oblivious to the dangers lurking in this frozen world.
And then there's the Ice Queen, this mysterious, menacing force she's never actually shown in the book, which somehow makes her even more terrifying.
Yeah, like she represents this unseen threat, this chilling force that could just snuff out life in an instant. Talk about adding to the wintry chills.
That lack of visual description is deliberate. It taps into this primal fear of the unknown, and it reinforces the idea that death, like the Ice Queen, can be this sudden, unexpected event.
Right, we don't actually see the squirrel die, only its frozen form later, which adds to the sense of mystery and inevitability.
Exactly, and then it gets really interesting when we see how different characters react to the squirrel's death.
Yeah, Little Mind's reaction is so jarring. She's all, hey, a new muff.
Yeah.
While Moomintroll is completely heartbroken and wants to give the squirrel a proper burial.
It's almost like they represent these two extremes of how we deal with death. Little Maya is all about practicality, while Moomintroll embodies the emotional, almost spiritual side of it.
And you have Too-ticki, this wise, practical character who offers a different perspective altogether.
Too-ticki, she's a really crucial character in understanding how Trollvinter tackles this theme of death. Unlike Snufkin, who's usually the one guiding Moomintroll, Too-ticki is all about facing reality head on.
She's definitely a different kind of mentor, very grounded in the here and now, not afraid to talk about the harsh realities of winter or death for that matter.
Yeah, she doesn't sugarcoat anything, but she also doesn't make it seem terrifying. She explains death to Moomintroll as part of the natural cycle of things.
Oh, that's right. She talks about how the squirrel's body will nourish the earth and new life will spring from it. It's a beautiful way to frame it.
It is. It acknowledges the sadness of death, but also offers a sense of hope and renewal. Death isn't an ending, it's a transformation. But before we explore Too-ticki's role further, let's shift gears for a moment and talk about a character who embodies a completely different kind of loneliness, the Groak.
Oh yes, the Groak. She's such a fascinating and somewhat tragic figure, always wandering in search of warmth and connection, but extinguishing any light she approaches.
It's like she represents this deep yearning for something she can't quite attain, a sort of embodiment of isolation and despair.
And it makes you wonder, is her presence in Trollvinter meant to highlight the different ways loneliness can manifest itself, especially in this harsh, wintry environment?
That's a great question, and I think it's worth exploring because it connects back to the squirrel story and how death itself can trigger feelings of isolation.
So it's not just the physical isolation of winter, but also the emotional isolation that comes with loss.
Precisely. And that's where Too-ticki's role becomes even more crucial. She provides that much-needed support and guidance, helping Moomintroll navigate both the practical and the emotional challenges of this new reality.
It's like she represents a different kind of mentorship, one that's grounded in the realities of this harsh winter, and that doesn't shy away from difficult topics like death.
Exactly. She doesn't just offer philosophical musings. She shows Moomintroll how to cope, how to find strength and meaning in the face of loss. But, speaking of strength and meaning, let's go back to the Ice Queen for a moment. She's this powerful, almost mythical figure representing death in all its finality. But I think there's something more to her, something perhaps a bit more personal to Jansson's own experience.
That's interesting. What do you mean?
Oh, well, it's easy to see the Ice Queen as just a symbol of death. But if we dig a little deeper, I think we can connect her to Janssen's own anxieties about creative control, especially during this time of immense success with the Moomins.
You mean like a fear of losing her artistic vision?
Exactly. She was struggling with the commercial aspects of the Moomins' success, all the merchandising and adaptations. It's almost like she feared her characters would be frozen in a particular image, one that wasn't entirely her own.
So the Ice Queen could represent that fear of creative stagnation of her work becoming fixed and unchanging, losing its vitality.
Precisely. It adds another layer to her chilling presence, doesn't it? The Ice Queen isn't just about death in the literal sense. She also embodies the potential death of creativity, of artistic freedom, which makes you wonder how many of us face our own Ice Queens in our lives, those fears that threaten to stifle our passions and individuality.
That's a powerful thought. And it brings us back to Too-ticki's role. She's not just helping Moomintroll deal with the loss of the squirrel, but also with navigating the challenges of this unfamiliar winter. She's showing him how to find warmth and light, even in the darkest, coldest moments.
And this reminds us that even when the Ice Queen comes, even when we face loss or fear, there's always a chance for spring to return, for new life to emerge.
It's a beautiful message of hope and resilience. And it makes me think about how Jansson herself must have found ways to navigate her own winters, both creatively and personally. But before we wrap up with how Trollvinter ultimately offers this sense of hope, let's turn our attention for a moment to Moomin Mama. She's a bit of an enigma in this story, present throughout, but in a very unique way, given that she's hibernating.
You're right. Moomin Mama's presence, or rather her absence, is really interesting to consider. It's like, even in hibernation, she plays a vital role in the story.
Yeah, it's like she represents this enduring spirit of family and tradition, even when she's not physically present, to guide Moomintroll through this winter.
Precisely. And I think that's something we can all relate to, how the values and memories of our loved ones continue to shape us even when they're not physically there.
It's like their influence provides a sense of comfort and guidance, a reminder that we're not alone, even when facing difficult times.
Exactly. And in Moomintroll's case, Moomin Mama represents that enduring connection to family and home, which helps him navigate this unfamiliar and sometimes frightening world. But it's interesting, isn't it? How Moomintroll's initial fear and resistance towards winter eventually shift. By the end of the story, he's not just tolerating it, he's come to appreciate it.
Ah, yes. That transformation is key to the story's message about growth and acceptance. Remember, at first, Moomintroll just wants to hibernate and escape the challenges of winter. But through his encounters with the squirrel, the Ice Queen, and especially Too-ticki, he learns to adapt to find beauty in unexpected places.
He even comes to appreciate the silence and stillness of winter, which initially felt so isolating. It's like he's discovered a different kind of beauty, one that's found in introspection and a deeper understanding of the world around him.
And that ties back to the squirrel story, doesn't it? Just as the squirrel's death is not an ending, but a transformation, winter is not just a time of darkness and isolation, but also a time for reflection, for inner growth. And perhaps that's one of the most powerful takeaways from Trollvinter, that even in the face of loss, change, and uncertainty, there's potential for growth, renewal, and a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. But I think we'll have to save that discussion for next time, because we're just about out of time for today.
Right, but I'm already looking forward to diving back into these themes. There's just so much to unpack in Trollvinter.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it really makes you think about how Jansson uses the winter setting to explore these different facets of loneliness. It's not just about being physically alone, it's about those deeper feelings of isolation and longing.
Right, and how those feelings can be amplified by the circumstances. Like in Moomintroll's case, he's dealing with the loss of the squirrel, the strangeness of this new winter world, and the fact that his family is hibernating, so he's literally and figuratively alone.
Exactly. He's experiencing this kind of double whammy of isolation. And that's where Too-ticki's role becomes so interesting. She steps in to offer this really grounded, practical kind of support.
Yeah, she's not giving him vague philosophical advice or telling him to just tough it out. She's actually showing him how to cope, how to find warmth and light in this seemingly bleak environment.
And that's a really important distinction, isn't it? Too-ticki's guidance is all about action, about finding ways to adapt and thrive, even in the face of adversity.
It's like she's saying, okay, winter is here. Death is a part of life now. Let's figure out how to live with it, how to find meaning and purpose, even in the midst of these challenges.
Exactly. And I think that's a really powerful message, especially for young readers. It's not about denying the sadness or the difficulty of these experiences, but about finding ways to move forward to find those glimmers of hope and beauty, even in the darkest of times. And, you know, it makes me think about how that message can apply to us as adults, too. We all face our own winters in life, those periods of loss, change, or uncertainty. And sometimes what we need most is that practical, grounded, support someone to help us navigate those challenges and find our way through.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing that we don't have to go through these things alone.
It's about remembering that spring will always return even after the longest, coldest winter.
And on that note, I think it's time for us to wrap up this deep dive into Tove Jansson's Trollvinter. It's been a fascinating journey exploring these themes of death, loneliness, and the cyclical nature of life.
It certainly has. And I hope our listeners have found it as thought-provoking and insightful as we have.
Me too. So until next time, keep exploring those hidden depths within yourselves and the world around you. And remember, even in the darkest of winters, there's always a spark of hope waiting to be rekindled.